Have you ever just looked around an organization and noticed the absolute chaos of mismanaged resources? We're talking about expensive machinery breaking down just because of deferred maintenance, or software licenses auto-renewing for platforms literally nobody uses anymore, or maybe it's siloed departments fighting over budgets while the actual value of the company just slowly drains away. It's a super common nightmare. But today, we're going to fix that. Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we are looking at the newly updated standard ISO 55000-2024. And look, I know what you might be thinking, but this isn't just dry compliance text. It's actually the ultimate blueprint for creating order out of that chaos and realizing total organizational value. We're going to break down exactly how the world's most efficient organizations view, manage, and really extract value from everything they rely on.
Okay, first things first, let's dive into this by completely shattering a really common preconception. Because when you hear the word asset, your mind probably jumps straight to accounting, right? You think of a balance sheet, depreciation, capital expenditures, or maybe just a giant pile of cash. But to truly grasp the modern framework of asset management, we literally have to unlearn that super narrow financial definition.
Here's our roadmap for today's explainer. Number 1, defining the asset. Number 2, the asset life cycle. 3, what is asset management? 4, 3 core principles. And 5, outcomes and benefits.
All right, let's jump straight into Section 1, defining the asset.
So, according to the ISO standard, an asset is simply an item, thing, or entity that has potential or actual value to an organization. Now, notice what's missing there. There is absolutely no mention of price tags, ownership, or even a physical form. The big takeaway here is that an asset is anything, physical or non-physical, that brings actual or potential value to the table. Sure, it could be a building, absolutely. But it could also be a piece of software, a patent, or even a really specific, highly curated set of data.
And, honestly, thinking about it this way brilliantly illustrates just how broad the definition actually is. On one hand, you have your classic tangible assets, right? The infrastructure, the inventory, the physical tools being utilized by a worker. But then, on the other hand, think about a massive forest. For an organization that manages natural resources, the long-term sustainability of that forest is a completely monumental asset. Both of these things require management, both bring serious value, and both fall perfectly under the ISO 55000 umbrella.
Now, let's introduce a really important concept, the critical asset. Imagine a team of firefighters. The highly specialized gear they're wearing, the hoses they're relying on, these are critical assets. Why? Well, because the standard defines a critical asset as one having the potential to significantly impact the achievement of an organization's core objectives. In this context, if that asset fails, it directly impacts human safety and strict legal requirements. So criticality isn't just about how much the item costs, it's entirely about the sheer magnitude of its impact if it were to fail.
Moving right along to Section 2, the asset life cycle. To totally de-jargonize this standard, we need to understand a pretty stark contrast. The standard makes a super important distinction between asset life and life cycle. Asset life is simply the total lifespan, the absolute period, from the very moment an asset is just a tiny idea in someone's head until its final end of life when it no longer poses any residual obligations. The life cycle, however, that's what we actually care about managing. These are the specific, active, managed stages it goes through, which require totally different activities and processes. Let's actually track the typical stages an asset experiences over time. At year 0, we have conception and design. Then, maybe years 1 and 2, we construct or acquire it. From year 3 all the way to 15, we're in the long haul of operating and maintaining it. Eventually, things wear down, so years 15 to 20 might involve renewing or replacing parts of it. Finally, at year 20 and beyond, we dispose of it. But really pay attention to that last phrase, extinguish liabilities. An asset isn't truly at its end of life until you've safely decommissioned it and ensured it's not going to cause any environmental damage or legal headaches down the road.
Okay, Section 3. What exactly is asset management?
This is the pivot. This is where we transition from looking at static objects to building dynamic organizational strategy. The standard officially defines asset management as the coordinated activity of an organization to realize value from assets. It's not just a maintenance schedule stuck on a fridge. It is a highly coordinated, intentional effort to balance costs, mitigate risks, seize opportunities, and completely optimize performance benefits.
Think about an auto manufacturing line, for example. Assets almost never work alone in a vacuum. A single conveyor belt or a single robotic arm is an asset, sure, but together they form an asset system, a whole set of assets that constantly interact or are interrelated. If you only manage that robotic arm perfectly but totally ignore the conveyor belt feeding it, your entire system grinds to a halt. True asset management requires you to look at the whole interconnected web, balancing the performance, risks, and costs of the entire system to keep the factory running smoothly.
That brings us to Section 4, the 3 core principles.
According to the ISO 55000 standard, there are exactly 3 fundamental principles that absolutely must guide all asset management behaviors, decisions, and frankly, your corporate culture. Number 1 is value. Remember, assets only exist to provide value. That's it. This principle ensures that every single decision made regarding an asset clearly contributes to the organization's overarching goals. It forces transparent decision-making over the entire lifespan of the asset. You aren't just going out and buying the cheapest piece of equipment, you're calculating which piece of equipment brings the most reliable, concrete value to the organization over the next 10 or 20 years.
Number 2 is alignment. You've probably seen companies where the finance department arbitrarily cuts a budget, forcing the operations team to run a machine straight into the ground, which then totally ruins the production schedule, right? Well, this principle demands vertical alignment, linking the high-level corporate purpose all the way down to daily maintenance plans, and horizontal alignment, ensuring technical, financial, and operational teams are coordinating seamlessly together. No more silos, period.
And number 3 is leadership, because, let's be real, without sustained top-down commitment, even the best management system in the world is going to fail. Leadership establishes the direction. They define the clear roles, they grant the necessary authority to get things done, and most importantly, they foster a truly collaborative culture. If leadership doesn't champion asset management, it just becomes another dusty, ignored binder sitting on a shelf. Finally, we wrap up with Section 5, outcomes and benefits. So, why do all this? Well, systematic asset management basically guarantees 3 huge foundational wins. First, assurance. You get way better oversight and accountability, actually knowing for a fact that you're making the right decisions with the right resources. Second, adaptability. By deeply understanding your assets, you can rapidly respond to sudden internal shifts or crazy external market changes. And third, sustainability. You finally shift from reactive, short-term panic mode to long-term thinking that spans the entire life cycle of your operations. And it is so vital to see how the standard specifically defines sustainability here. It's not just a corporate buzzword for going green. ISO 55000 defines sustainability as a 3-dimensional balancing act: environmental, social, and economic. It means meeting the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs across all 3 of those fronts simultaneously. It is all about enduring, long-term success.
Ultimately, it comes down to robust, highly tangible benefits across the board. Financially, you're going to see improved returns on investments and lowered costs, simply because you aren't wasting money on unexpected, catastrophic failures. Operationally, you systematically manage risk and drastically enhance your resilience. Socially, you build immense stakeholder confidence because your services are actually reliable. And from a compliance standpoint, you have a documented, bulletproof system demonstrating adherence to all legal and regulatory requirements. It's literally a win from every single angle.
So, I'm going to leave you with this final thought to challenge how you view your own organization's assets through this incredibly powerful ISO 55000 lens. The next time you walk through your facilities, or look at your software stacks, or talk to your teams, ask yourself, are you truly maximizing the value of the assets you rely on every single day, or are you just sitting back and watching them age? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I really hope this gives you the exact blueprint you need to start building lasting value.